I'd had enough of the homeowners association. For years, I'd tolerated their endless, nitpicky rules, the passive-aggressive notes about my lawn being a quarter-inch too high, the fines for having a garden gnome they deemed tacky, the constant feeling of being watched. It was like living in a miniature police state run by people with too much time on their hands. The final straw came when they fined me $200 because my trash can was visible from the street for an hour after the garbage truck had already passed. An hour. I decided right then and there, I was done. Leaving an HOA isn't as simple as just saying you quit, though. It's a legal process, a messy divorce from a community you never really wanted to marry in the first place. I hired a lawyer, and after months of paperwork and heated emails, my property was officially unenforced from the HOA's covenants. I was free. To celebrate, I bought the most gloriously gaudy 7-foot-tall inflatable flamingo and put it right in the middle of my front yard. It was my declaration of independence. Of course, this did not sit well with the queen bee of the HOA, a woman we'll call Karen. Karen lived across the street, and her window was a permanent surveillance post for the neighborhood. She thrived on reporting violations. My flamingo was not just an eyesore to her, it was an act of rebellion that threatened her entire world order. I could practically feel her stare burning a hole through my new inflatable friend. I just smiled and gave her a little wave every time I went to get the mail. The peace lasted exactly 2 days. On the third day, I decided to do a little bit of landscaping. Now that I was free from the HOA's strict rules about approved plant species, I was going to build a small rock garden. I had a pallet of decorative stones delivered, and the truck driver, following my instructions, left it at the edge of my driveway, right by the curb. I planned to move them that afternoon. It wasn't blocking the sidewalk or the street, just sitting on the very edge of my own property. I hadn't even been back inside for 5 minutes when I saw her. Karen, phone pressed to her ear, pacing on her perfect HOA-approved lawn, gesturing wildly at my driveway. Her face was a mask of theatrical outrage. I knew exactly what she was doing. She couldn't get me for the flamingo anymore, so she was looking for any tiny infraction she could find. And apparently, a pallet of rocks was a public menace worthy of a 911 call. I shook my head and went to make a cup of coffee. Let her waste their time. About 20 minutes later, a police car pulled up. It rolled to a stop right in front of my house. Karen practically skipped out to meet the officer, her finger pointing accusingly at my pallet of rocks as if it were a ticking time bomb. I sighed, put down my coffee, and headed outside to deal with the inevitable nonsense. This was Karen's ultimate power move. She couldn't find me anymore, so she'd brought in the actual law. As I walked down my driveway, the officer turned away from Karen and started walking toward me, and then I stopped dead in my tracks. The sun was in my eyes, but I'd recognize that walk anywhere. The confident stride, the set of his shoulders, my heart skipped a beat. It couldn't be. As he got closer, he took off his sunglasses, and a slow grin spread across his face. It was my son, Alex. "Dad, what are you getting yourself into now?" he asked, trying and failing to hide his amusement. I just stood there, speechless for a moment, before a huge smile broke out on my own face. "Alex, what are you doing here?" I laughed, pulling him into a hug right there in the driveway. Karen, who had been following close behind, froze. Her jaw dropped so far I thought it might hit the pavement. The victorious smirk she'd been wearing evaporated, replaced by a look of pure, unadulterated shock. Alex pulled back from the hug and looked from me to the pallet of rocks, then over to a sputtering Karen. "So," he said, putting on his official police officer voice, "Ma'am, you called this in. What seems to be the emergency?" Karen's eyes darted between me and Alex, her brain clearly struggling to process this new development. "That pallet, it's a public obstruction, a hazard. He's breaking the law," she stammered, her voice a few octaves higher than usual. Alex walked over to the pallet. He nudged it with his boot. He walked around it. He looked up and down the empty street. He turned back to her with a perfectly straight face. "Ma'am, this pallet is on private property. It's not blocking the road or the sidewalk. There's no violation here. But the HOA," she shrieked. "It's against the rules." I couldn't help but chime in. "Actually, Karen," I said calmly, "it's not. I'm not part of your little club anymore." Remember, Karen's face turned a shade of red that clashed horribly with her beige polo shirt. She looked at Alex pleadingly. "Officer, you have to do something. He's creating a nuisance. Look at that giant bird," she screeched, pointing a trembling finger at my glorious flamingo. Alex followed her finger, and I saw his shoulders start to shake. He was trying so hard not to laugh. He cleared his throat. "Ma'am," he said, his voice firm but laced with humor. "With all due respect, a man's choice of lawn ornament is not a police matter. And as for the rocks, my dad here says he's moving them this afternoon, so there's no issue." He then turned to me. "Right, Dad?" He gave me a wink. "Absolutely, son. Just had to finish my coffee first," I replied, playing along. Karen looked like she was about to short circuit. The one person she thought would finally put me in my place, the ultimate authority figure, was not only siding with me but was my son. Her weapon had turned against her. She opened and closed her mouth a few times, but no sound came out. It was a beautiful sight. Alex must have felt a little sorry for her, or maybe he just wanted to wrap things up. You and your flamenco dad. I should have known, he chuckled, shaking his head. Hey, a man's got to celebrate his freedom, I said, clapping him on the shoulder. Want to help me move some rocks? I'll buy you dinner, he grinned. You've got a deal. But next time you declare war on the neighborhood, maybe give me a heads up. We spent the rest of the afternoon building the rock garden, laughing about the look on Karen's face. The story spread through the neighborhood like wildfire. My little act of defiance, backed by the unexpected arrival of my son, became a local legend. The HOA's power seemed a little less absolute after that day, and every time I look at my front yard, with its beautiful rock garden and its ridiculously large pink flamingo, I don't just see a lawn, I see a victory. And it's the sweetest victory I've ever known. Thanks for watching our story today. If you enjoyed it, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more. We'll see you in the next video.